I am sorry for the inconvenience, she said as she began to turn around, stepping away from Delius. It is clear that you possess godly right and ownership of this deity beast. It serves you, and thus I have no claim to it. It would be foolish of me to believe that a single god could defeat a pantheon of them, whilst so far away from her own, even if I wanted to claim the deity beast by force against another race of gods who already lives there. My efforts would be meaningless, and I would face defeat. And so, my search must continue, she said, as Delia saw her fist clenching beside her. Her back turned away as her gaze fell to the floor. Why is it that I don't get the feeling that you're exactly thrilled about that? Delia said. Why exactly does that idea seem to upset you so? Because now it means that I have to keep going, the woman replied. I have been away from my home for too long, on this journey that seems to be without end. What are you talking about? Delius asked. What journey? What is your agenda? What do you want? Why were you so determined to claim our world as your own? You don't understand, do you? She said as she began to turn around, looking over her shoulder at Delius. What the divine beasts are? Well, as far as I know, Hagara, or the divine beast that you speak of here, it's our home, the planet from which we originate. So, you don't understand. It appears that the knowledge has been lost to you over time. So, allow me to enlighten you. These divine beasts are not actually our home. And at the same time, now, they are all we have. The divine beasts were our arcs. Our arcs? Delius replied, still feeling a bit lost. It is said that in the beginning, before the Great Division, the separation of Dodana, our true home, before Dodana broke apart, shattering and creating this universe in which we now live, us Solari, along with the other god races, inhabited Dodana as our home, our original world, when there were no stars in the sky, when all that existed were the oceans of light and the Everfields. It is there that our race, the Solari, along with all the other godly races, lived. But, in the end, those that inhabited Dodala began to sense a great coming calamity, the destruction of our home. This was assured throughout all of the godly races. And so, foreseeing Dodala's destruction, we of the godly races each claimed ownership of arcs, godly beasts of great magnitude, ferocity, and durability, the mightiest of creatures that roamed our world, that swam in the seas of light, and roamed upon the endless fields, each of the races befriending or capturing as many of these as they possibly could, and with all the godly might that they could muster, trying to protect them from the destruction of Dodana. My people, the Solari, captured one such entity, and using all of the power that we could muster, helped protect it from the shattering of Dodala. And with the immense explosion that rang out, all those who had captured arcs were sent flying out into the expanse of this new universe of countless worlds, countless stars, all merely remnants, small fragments of our home, Dodala. In truth, everything that exists in this universe is our right, our home, or simply a sliver of it. And yet these worlds, they are so limited. The life that breeds upon them, but a tiny firefly in the ocean of time, fading away so quickly it is as if they never existed at all. Fragile beyond reckoning, weak beyond measure, for truly compared to them, we are gods, and thus any true hope of living alongside of them is simply the hope of a fool. They cannot even bear the radiance of my very existence, of any Solari. They simply burn away. I can sustain the form that I am in now, so long as I maintain focus. However, that is a hefty price. If my focus wavers, flinches, or bends, if I am distracted, if I doze off for a minute, then any and all that are within radius of me, that lie within the space that I lie in, will simply burn to ash, too weak to bear my existence without my constant focus and intent. It is said that in the beginning, after the destruction of Dodara, that my people began to look to the heavens, beyond the ark that cradled them, and seeing the lights forming in the sky, they were filled with hope that more Solari had survived, come through the cataclysm, that they were out there, calling to us. And so, out beyond our arcs we traveled, to find these newly forming sprites of light, hoping to meet these other Solari, signaling out to us. But all we found were balls of gas, without sentience or awareness. They could not speak nor be spoken to. Regardless of how similar we seemed to be, they were nothing more than balls of gas, taunting us from the skies. And in this discovery, my people's hopes were shattered, because it was clear that we were still alone. In time, we began to see small slivers of worlds forming, life growing on the surface. From our vantage point in the stars, we could view this. In time, other beings with intelligence seemed to emerge upon them. We had hoped that when this began, that our loneliness would come to an end, that there would be others. And yet, when we first tried to contact these races, it did not go well. For the moment that the first Solari set foot on one of these worlds, with a burgeoning new race and species, our very presence there wiped all life from it. The life of a single Solari destroyed their entire world. The life upon it so weak that the lives of countless millions were wiped away by our very presence. And so once again, we truly discovered that we are alone. It seemed as if every hope that we had, every hope that grew within us, every glimmer of it, seemed to simply burn away. This new universe, built of fragments from our home, too weak to bear even the burden of our presence. In time, we began to master the ability to suppress ourselves in states like the one you see now, in hopes of speaking to these newer races, because it was true that we did not desire their destruction, nor their death. They were simply too fragile to bear our being, and so we created the form you see now so that we might speak with them. But once again, it did not go well. These efforts too were dashed. our hopes of peaceful coexistence shattered, as it seemed like regardless of what race we attempted to communicate with, their response was only one of two. Either they thought us some sort of destructor come to reap pain and despair upon them, and attacked us. Fruitless though it may have been, though they could not inflict us with pain, our hearts wept. And the only other exception to this were those that seemed to perceive us as gods, wishing to pay homage and worship us, which, given the circumstance, was the better of the two options. And so, us Solari began to adopt these races, take them under our wing, teach them social skills, how to build and construct things, teach them to interact peacefully. And so, we Solari became their gods, and thus it has been for as long as time can record, since the destruction of our true home. And so our empire grows, ever expanding, with more of these fragile little insect races falling under our banner. But still, a yearning exists in our hearts for those that we can truly be at peace with. We search for the other godly races among the stars, for fragments of our true home. For it is possible that the godly beasts themselves were strong enough to bear the burden, even if it injured them, without our protection, to survive the separation of Dodana. And so we had hoped to find another of these worlds, perhaps more, scattered amongst these frail little stars and planets, so that we might find new homes. We have only managed to come in contact with one other godly race besides yourself, and unfortunately, it was the worst of them, the one race in all of the godly pantheon that we Solarans could not associate with. Their existence the very antithesis of ours, the Nubal, people of the void. They live in the very perimeters of this universe, a place that we call the void. For good reason. It is the home of the Nubal, all they who survived the shattering of Dodala. Beyond the reach of the stars and the planets lies a vast emptiness, where there is, in fact, nothing. Nothing but the Nubal, who stay there. The Nubal, well, they are not but hunger. They are not sociable. They do not wish to speak, only to sleep and eat eternally. And so their fingers can be felt throughout the vastness of this fragmented, tiny universe. The people of this universe know these phenomenon as black holes, but in truth, it is simply the Nubal, opening voids into small segments of this new universe, devouring simply enough so that they can remain asleep. And they are not friendly, even to us other godly beings, which is actually quite contradictory. Before on Dodala, or at least is passed down through the generations, all of the godly races were friendly, that we all lived together peacefully. But when Dodala fractured, it appears that it fractured our hearts as well, and yet another great heartbreak reached my people when the first of the godly races was discovered, and like all the others, rejected us.